Now, this render is a little dark right now, but I just wanted it to be dark to demonstrate another tool that we can take advantage of. Here in the render view, we can work with the overall camera exposure and the gamma. You can see that the exposure will lighten and darken a scene based on our render, and we can adjust the gamma color, which desaturates or really adds a lot of dark contrast to the render. So this is another tool that you can use to just fine-tune and finesse. So as opposed to adjusting all the lights in the very end, you can finesse some of those settings to get it just the way that we like for our final render. Alright, so now that we have this set up, let's take a look at one last polishing technique. And for this, we're going to use an advanced rendering engine called Mental Ray. Now, Mental Ray is a plugin that comes along with Autodesk Maya, and it helps us to achieve more photorealistic results. Now, by default, we've been using Maya software, and the comparison between Maya software and Mental Ray is like using a quick Kodak camera compared to a professional, expensive camera. We're going to be able to get more photorealistic results with Mental Ray. So I'm going to switch over to Mental Ray, and just a side note, if you don't see Mental Ray in your dropdown, it may just be disabled. You can easily enable this. Sometimes it's disabled by default when you first launch Maya. You can go to Window, Setting Preferences, Plugin Manager. And in your Plugin Manager, if you scroll down towards the bottom, look for Maya to Mental Ray, Maya to MR. Chances are these are both not checked. So check the auto load. This will make sure next time you open Maya, Mental Ray will be turned on, and also turn on loaded. That way you'll be able to use it this time. You can refresh the list and then close the plugin manager. So now you should see Mental Ray in the dropdown. Now I'm going to create a render so we can compare Mental Ray with Maya software. Now the first thing you'll probably notice is that the scene is quite a bit brighter than what we had before. But the other thing you may notice is look at the render time. Before it took 2 seconds, and here with Mental Ray it took 14 seconds. So Mental Ray is much more processing intensive, so it will take longer to produce the image. So that would be one of the downfalls of using Mental Ray. But for the quality increase, it'll be worth it. Now, in my case, I'll just reset the exposure to default right now, so we have a little bit darker scene, so we can compare what we had with Mental Ray and without. And now, let's take a look at a really nice feature within Mental Ray. I'm going to come up to my panel toolbar and go to Render Settings. And there's a lot of settings, and we really don't have the time in this Quick Start video series to look at all of them. But just one setting to show the power of Mental Ray. If we come to the Indirect Lighting tab, let's come down to Final Gather. And Final Gather is something that Mental Ray is famous for. It's indirect lighting, and it'll help to bounce lighting about our scene. So let's keep this image and take another render, and we'll see a hit on the render time for enabling the setting, but we'll also see a quality boost. So let's compare. Alright, so we see the render time almost doubled in my instance. It took 20 seconds to produce the render. So why would we sit through a longer render time? Well, let's take a look at the difference. You can see it's a very subtle difference, but we're starting to get bounced lighting. Before we had dark, hard shadows, and now you can see how lighting is starting to bounce within the logo. So using Final Gather at the very end of the rendering is going to give us a nice, final, polished look for our logo design. Now, finally, I'm going to adjust the exposure to just get a nice pop to the color overall with my scene. So if I darken the gamma to get the colors a little bit more vibrant here, and then I'll drive the exposure, you can see that we're really getting some nice orange colors now, just playing with these fine-tune settings. So really between working with these fine-tuned settings, working with our colors, our lights, everything comes into conjunction and plays with one another. So it's really kind of a ballet between all these different settings to come up with a nice final end result. And here I'd say we're getting pretty close to a final polished quality for our logo as we come in and finalize on this look and feel. So here we could call our logo complete. Here in the polishing stage, we took a look at how we can create bevel materials So we selected sub-object materials by going into face mode. We took a look at selection techniques of selecting objects and then deselecting what we don't need. We created bevel materials by using the blend material to create a nice shiny metallic surface, which gave us these nice highlights. We even used special effects such as glow to get those highlights to just pop out to the camera. We then edited the lights and made some edits to the materials and textures so that everything played together nicely. We then enabled Mental Ray, the more advanced rendering engine, so that we could take advantage of the render setting of Final Gather. Final Gather gave us that nice final soft shadows, the contact shadows on my background plane, and gave this nice professional look and feel. We then used the exposure lens and the gamma control settings within my render view to bring this final logo to its final quality. So as we look at where we started with materials and where we progressed over the lighting, you can see how all those little adjustments came around to the final look and feel that gave us our professional logo here.